Tonight, our guest is Leah Penniman, who's the co-director, co-founder, and farm manager of Soul Fire Farm. We are so lucky, meaning we and my family and all of us in Albany and Troy, because the Soul Fire Farm is in Grafton, which is about 15 miles from Troy, 20 miles from Albany, New York. So it's just been incredible to have her and her family and us be together as family. And I miss so much being able to go there right now. But they decided to close down all their public programs till next year because of COVID-19. So I'm really excited to interview her and share the work, because if we don't have food, we can't eat. And if we can't eat, we can't live. So I did just want to start today with what is happening. Cases are rising, particularly in Texas. I keep forgetting, for everyone who's new, my name is Rosa Clemente. I'm the host and executive producer of the show. But today we have seen Texas, Florida, and now Mississippi. The cases are humongous. The COVID is spreading throughout these three states, particularly Texas and Florida. And in fact, today, Miami-Dade just closed all the summer camps because some of the students, young people, are infected. But overall in Florida, and I didn't know the statistic till I was watching this brother on the news earlier, there are 23,000 children that are now positive with COVID-19. Last week, 85 infants in one county in Texas, which is a farm worker community, this county. 85 infants have been tested and have COVID-19. And also some statistics that in Chicago, even though Black people are 30% of the population, they comprise 70% of the new COVID infections, right? So right now there is a brewing battle. Are teachers going back to school? Are they not? I've been reading a lot of things from teachers. One article really struck me today where she's like, this teacher said, we've been prepared for mass shootings and things like that, but asking us to go back into school is like asking us to pick which way should we die. And there's a lot of teachers. First, a lot of them have retired if they can. And second, they're bringing up excellent points, which is it might not affect children the same way or young people, but they can be spreaders. And I think it's important to note that a lot of 20, 25-year-olds who fought COVID are now getting it a second time. So I think we have to be really responsible when it comes to our educators and asking them for so much when they do so much for almost nothing. As well, this week ends the 600 supplemental unemployment insurance. So if you file unemployment and you got unemployment, I filed for unemployment. It took a long time, but I got it. And a lot of us who are gig economy workers were approved what is called the Pandemic Unemployment Assisting Act that came with the first round of federal monies that came out. Well, this week, the extra $600 that all of us were getting will end. And what Donald Trump and his administration has said, it's so weird, I never really say his name, I call him 45. But what he is saying, they are saying, is that giving people more money is a disincentive to go to work. And I think we have to try to smash that narrative and saying, you're paying people to stay home. And honestly, my belief is everyone should stay at home if they can, and everyone should not have to be worried about rent in August. Like, yes, cancel the rent, cancel all the bills. Like, this is horrific what is happening all over this country. But unfortunately, it always predominantly attacks, it attacks Black and brown people. I actually think the non-response from the government, right, is state violence. I don't think state violence always has to look like one specific thing. This is state violence that is being perpetuated on us. Meanwhile, here is 45 and all his people really testing out what they're planning on doing in a lot of cities. And actually, they've already said it, that they're going to do that. This last week, we've seen a lot of what's been going on in Portland, Oregon, and that there's been military federal agents. Most of them, people don't know who they are. Are they feds? Why are they from the Department of Homeland Security? Why is Border and Custom Patrols down there? So what we've been seeing in Portland, and Portland has been like this for almost 60 days. So like I encourage people to go and seek out sources from Portland organizers on the ground. With all that said, is that now you see all these mayors saying, well, we shouldn't have military federal agents and local police be militarized. But a lot of these same mayors are now the ones that are going to suffer in the community under what Trump and what he's going to do, which is he has said that he will send troops to Chicago, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Oakland, and Seattle. So we have some video of that explaining what that means. I mean, what it really means is we're in a military state, right? And for a long time, people don't want to say that, they don't want to think that this country could be fascist. Well, this is the moment now where you now have to switch your thinking. We are living at the precipice of fascism, right? That is what the militarized police are going to do. And if people watch what's happening in Portland, and I have had some people hit me up like, well, Portland's always like that. They're always turning up. That's where all the anarchists live, right? That's where some anti-fascists are. Portland does have that history, but mostly these are white kids. So what I'm saying is, if this is what white people are going to do to their own generation, I can't even fathom what is about to happen when these troops are sent in to cities that are predominantly black, brown, and poor. So we're going to show some video of what is happening in Portland and what that means, for what will probably happen this week. A lot of militarized agents and local police forces descending on communities and perpetuating state violence, but also taking people, basically kidnapping them, because no one knows where these people are being taken until they're released. And there's actually not a lot that have been released for Portland. And, that's where we're at right now in this country. Hey, everybody.
Today's show in Portland, Oregon, where militarized federal officers continued their nightly attacks on anti-racist protesters Monday, shooting gas and projectiles at demonstrators at Portland's courthouse, in a scene that's become all too familiar in recent weeks. Camouflage U.S. agents deployed by the Department of Homeland Security waging a campaign of violence against largely peaceful demonstrations in Oregon. The harrowing scene in Portland has drawn increased outrage in recent days, with Oregon Senators Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden demanding federal forces be removed from the streets, and an investigation into reports that unidentified federal officers have snatched protesters off the streets into unmarked vans and detained them. On Saturday, Navy veteran Christopher David, who went to the site of the protest to question the officers about their use of violence, was hospitalized with his right hand broken in two places after the officers beat and pepper sprayed him. On Monday, Trump praised the use of unmarked cars and unidentified officers against the anti-racist protesters and vowed to deploy law enforcement agents to more major U.S. cities.
More federal law enforcement, that I can tell you. In Portland, they've done a fantastic job. They've been there 3 days, and they really have done a fantastic job in a very short period of time. No problem. They grab them, a lot of people in jail. They're leaders. These are anarchists. These are not protesters. People say protesters. These people are anarchists. These are people that hate our country, and we're not going to let it go forward.
Everybody, I was checking in for our guests. So as you can see, this is where we're at with Portland. These unemployment numbers continue to rise, and teachers are writing their wills, and as well, 90% of people who, if we all 90% of us wore masks, we can stop this infection from spreading. Okay, so my audio. Might be the mic. Okay. Hold on, hold on a second. She can't get on there. Tell her I'm about to email her. This is what happens with this one. Okay. Well, actually, I can't email her. You could ask her to try it again. Oh, tell her she has to only open it up in Google Chrome. It can't be Safari, Chrome, or Firefox on her phone. Yeah, which we were having a little. Yeah, I will do that. Let me ask Tanya. Tanya, do we have another video we could play so I can deal with Leah being able to connect? Okay, we're gonna play a video and we're gonna get Leah connected. I will just check her email now. She said. Sorry, just hold it up. Thank you.
Get the fuck out of Portland!
Look, I really want people to be prepared and understand where we're at. Again, if they're doing that to a majority of white young people in Portland, Oregon, what we're going to see in the next week with all these federal troops being deployed is probably something we haven't seen in our lifetime. I mean, like experience and seeing. We've had this before in the past with the National Guard and a lot of things. But I think it's important. I just want to read part of this book. I think we say fascist and we think that everybody knows what that term means, and everybody doesn't really understand what that means when we say it. So let me just read this part from a book called How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them. I'll show the book in a second. Fascist politicians justify their ideas by breaking down a common sense of history and creating a mythic past to support their vision for the present. They rewrite the population's shared understanding of reality by twisting the language of ideals through propaganda and promoting anti-intellectualism, attacking universities, educational systems, or people who challenge the idea of America. Eventually, with these techniques, fascist politics creates a state of unreality in which conspiracy theories and fake news replace debates. Fascist ideology seeks to naturalize group difference, thereby giving the appearance of natural scientific support for a hierarchy of human worth. Any progress for minority groups stokes feelings of victimhood among the dominant population. Law and order politics has mass appeal, casting quote us as lawful citizens and quote them by contrast as lawless criminals, whose behavior poses an existential threat to the manhood of the nation. Sexual anxiety is also a typical of fascist politics, as the patriarchal hierarchy is threatened by growing gender inequity. As the fear of them grows, we come to represent everything virtuous. So, and he ends this part, the beginning of his book, and says, labor unions and others are casted as meaning to separate hardworking citizens from the pay, i.e., we, the 1%, are makers and the rest of us are takers, right? And it's called How Fascism Works. It's really good. And, we just have to realize that some language people are not going to understand, but they're going to understand what's happening in their communities when federal agents come, when militarized police come, they are clear. And, Chicago is going to be the test right now, because him sending in troops to Chicago, I don't think he understands the level of organizing that occurs in Chicago, and I don't know what's going on with the mayor of Chicago or any of that. All I know is if he said it, they're going to do it, and we have to be prepared for that. So I'm so happy to be able to bring on our guests, as I told you all before, Leah Penniman, who's co-director, co-founder, and farm manager of Soulfire Farm. Hey, Leah.
Peace. How you doing?
Unmute. Hi, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, sis.
Yeah, no, thanks for being there. I mean, of course, we miss y'all so much. We usually go up at the end of June for the solstice party that now has people that literally were flying in from other parts of the country. It's the best night of the year, in my opinion. And of course, your children and ours, they're all kind of the same age, and it's just weird not to be able, to participate in a lot of the things and really just like see the land and everything that you all have created. So I just wanted to quote the Malcolm quote that you always quote, which is, revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. I know, right? And that's from Farming While Black. Please, everybody get it. It's so dope. I had ordered a lot of copies. Luckily, I was able to blurb, and I got one free copy, but then I ordered 10 and sent them to some of my folks that I love dearly.
You are a true friend. Thanks for that.
And first, how are you all doing? Because you are, I mean, in normal times, if people come and see y'all, people are like, it's so isolating, especially people from big cities. And you're like, it's 10 miles from Troy, New York. It's not that isolated, but how are all you doing, and the family, of course, how are you all doing?
Oh, thanks for asking. I mean, we did actually have a couple members of our team come down with coronavirus early on in the pandemic, but, thank Orisha and the ancestors, everyone is recovered. And it's really been something, the rhetoric and public gaze on the so-called essential worker. So being a farmer in these times, is an honor, but it's also a dubious distinction, because we know that society is valuing, the output of the essential workers, but not necessarily the lives of the essential workers. So, we're in the middle of all that. We're growing food, we're building gardens, we're organizing around lands and food and access for everybody, same as we always have, but we're in this interesting moment of awakening that I hope is more than a passing fad, that puts a lot of attention towards that work that, you and I and our comrades have been doing for many decades. So it's an interesting time to be alive,
I mean, it is. I mean, I've always said this. I mean, I tell all our comrades in Albany, and I'm always like, I know how to get to their farm in 25 minutes if it really goes down, and I'm like, I know exactly. I don't need a GPS. It's like my route, just in case, And I think I shared that with you and Jonah, like we will come here if it goes down like that. But really, like even the expansion of what has been happening on the land, it's hard to describe it. Like folks have to see it like 5 years ago and then see it now. And you're like, I mean, I've been completely amazed at all the new structures that you're building and all of that on this land. But can you tell folks how you started saying, well, this is something that we want to do? You know, we want
Yeah, for sure. And I thought we were going to be isolated out here for real, because when I started farming in the 90s, it was not cool. It was not chic. Nobody was trying to come out there and be with you. And so to go from that to having this multi-year waiting list for our training programs and folks always trying to come out has really been astounding. But you know, the idea behind Soulfire originally just had to do with confronting food apartheid. I'm sure folks know that Black and brown people in this country are much more likely to experience hunger, you know, diabetes, heart disease, kidney failure, all these diet-related illnesses that have nothing to do with our choices, right? Not about needing to be educated by outsiders about how to eat. It has to do with a whole history of white supremacy and wealth accumulation on our backs that it's excluded us. And so there's a reason we don't have grocery stores and farmers markets in our neighborhoods and good public transportation. There's a reason why our zip code is the #1 determiner of our life expectancy. So we were living in the South End, you know, near where you live now. And it was honestly it was tough even getting food for our babies. You know, we had a 2-year-old and a newborn at the time who spent most of their childhood there in the South End. And you know the options that are available, you know what the bus lines look like. And so when our neighbors on the block found out that Jonah and I knew how to farm, they started teasing us like, when are you going to start the farm for the people? When are you going to feed us? But we took it seriously, and we started looking for land that would claim us, and found this property in 2006. It was a forest. So it took us a bunch of years to build the home literally out of the earth of the land and restore the soil, and then start our doorstep delivery program, which is the first thing we did. And obviously it shifted and expanded since then in response to community need. But that was the root. It was like, to free ourselves, we must feed ourselves. So let's get to the business of having a farm that's really for the people.
Yeah. And in the book, when you start, you say, as a young person and one of 3 mixed race Black children raised in the rural North, mostly by our white father, I found it very difficult to understand who I was. And then you tell this story about, you know, what it was like to go to high school and how you would treat it. And then you say, I never imagined that I would become a farmer. In my teenage years, as my race consciousness evolved, I got the message loud and clear that Black activists were concerned with gun violence, housing discrimination, education reform, while white folks were concerned with organic farming and environmental conservation. I felt that I had to choose between my people and the earth. Fortunately, my ancestors had other plans. I passed a flyer advertising a summer job at the Food Project in Boston, Mass. That promised applicants the opportunity to grow food and serve the urban community. I was blessed to be accepted into the program, and from the first day, when the scent of freshly harvested cilantro nestled into my finger creases and dirty sweat stung my eyes, I was hooked on farming. And I love that you start with a personal story, because, you know, after you're doing the work for so long, people believe that, you know, either you grew up, although your mom was activist and, you know, things like that, you grow up and you're like, right, like that farming, whatever, that's what some white people shit. And I mean, that's what I used to hear in a lot of movement circles in the late 90s and early 2000s. But, you know, I think if people read that, and that it took one moment, like you felt that cilantro and dirt in your hand, and then you were like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do for life. You know, and I think
Yeah.
It's like it's never something huge or long. It's always something like a mother loses a son or a daughter or a non-gender conforming person to state violence, police violence, and then that's when they become an activist, right? or something happens, you're abused, and then as a woman you figure out a way out and you become an activist, and kind of like that's what happened to you. One moment, one 10-second moment was like, this is what my calling is, you know. And
Beautiful. Right. And we all have our own destinies, right? And so there's something, when I think about movement work, you know, there are so many points of intersection and so many needed changes. And so I really like the framework of the 4 wings of transformative social justice with the butterfly. I don't know if you've seen that one, but one of the wings, right, is about confrontation of oppressive structures. That's like taken to the streets, absolutely essential. Another wing is about those folks who have that endurance to be inside the system, changing laws, you know, making sure everyone has their SNAP benefits, and that prosecutors are not exercising undue power, right? And then there's like the institution builders. That's us. We build schools, we build farms. All, you know, what's the world we want to see? And the healers. And the butterfly can't fly if we don't have all the wings. So I really believe that we absolutely need our farmers, our teachers, our healers. We need our front lines organizers. We need our policy writers. And when those wings are in coordination and we're all manifesting our destinies, that's when we're actually able to create the society, the just society that we need.
Yeah, so you then you get this land and you've grown it to what it is now, you know. What was that process like? Like, you get land and you're like, we have to build a lot of things, and we need like, pipes for this, and we need electricity. Like, it's been a process, although y'all done it pretty quickly when I think about just how much you all have built there. Plus the fact that you also feed hungry people in Troy and Albany and those places, what was known as the capital region. But you get this. What was the process of you getting the land and then realizing like this is a lifetime commitment now? Like, this is our lives. You and Jonah, and the kids were still little, but now, you know, it's just incredible. Every time I see Emmett and Nashima, I'm like, oh my God, like they could run the revolution because we got to eat. Like, at the end of the day, everybody has to eat, you know? So what was that process like?
I mean, Nashima and Emmett, along with Alicia, you know, and Felix and everybody, Yabis, they could run the revolution together, right? But here's the thing, it's hard as hell. I mean, I'm really grateful that we were in our early 20s, so naive, so stubborn. I mean, there's the one moment I'll tell you that sort of illustrates what the process was like. So Joan and I, we thought we were smart and slick because we had paid cash for the land. We had saved money and paid cash for the land, and we thought we had it all figured out. We had no money left in the bank. Little did we realize that that's the inexpensive part of the journey, because you still need your septic, you need to bring in electricity, your internet, you need to dig a well, build a house, equipment, you know, all these things are much more expensive, at least upstate, than the land. So we had no money, but we're like, oh, we'll just build a house anyway. We'll just start taking these shovels and we'll dig a foundation for a house. Now, mind you, we're talking hard clay, boulders. It took months to dig this foundation, and we wanted our house to be solar, so it's got to face south. We get all done digging, and then Jonah's like, you know, I feel like we might have messed up, because I remember something in middle school science that maybe like where the compass points is not the same as where the sun points. And so I looked it up, and it's true, there's this fancy term called magnetic declination, which basically means you dug your damn hole in the wrong direction, 13 degrees. So we look at each other like, what are we going to do, right? And Jonah says, and mind you, the blisters have blood coming down, like I'm crying through the dirt. We've got little toddlers crying because they're hungry, and we've been out all the time, day and night, living in this mouse-infested trailer. Anyway, so he's like, you want to quit? I was like, nah, I never quit, you know? I'm like, you want to quit? He's like, nah, I never quit. So we just dug it again. And the whole thing has sort of been like that, of just kind of making it up as we go along. And everything that we've added to what Soulfire does has been because the community is asking us, right? So we do the doorstep deliveries of food. Then the parents who are getting the food were like, our kids are getting harassed by the police in the summer because there's no programs, there's nothing for them to do. Can you like give them an internship or something? So we started our youth program. Then we started getting calls from people around the country. Like, we heard that there's a farm that's led by Black and brown people. Can we come learn how to farm? So we started these other programs, right? And then our graduates didn't have land, so we started a land trust to get them land, you know, like on and on like that. And it's dope because it did start out as our family, but now we have both a co-op that owns the land, And then we have all of our, we have a team of 8 people who run the organization and run the farm. So it's beyond just a nuclear family. It's certainly expanded in terms of, who our team is. And that's been really beautiful too.
Yeah, and in the book you go through all of that. Like, if you want to get a farm, this is how, a land, this is how you do it. This is what you have to plant. You can't plant everything next to each other, and don't forget, you also have to harvest everything, and like that real breaking work. But I don't know if some people who just found out about you in Sophia Farm, you were also teaching full time up until about like 2 years ago, right? So you're farming, you have all of this, and then you're teaching as well. And then I think it was like I would say like the last 3 years have been, I mean, you've just been in heavy demand everywhere. Like, your schedule was just like packed, and you're traveling all around the country. In this last time that you were able to travel before all of this, and you were in seeing audiences now, have you seen it go from just mostly majority white people to now, like, wait, when I came here 10 years ago, I was the only one, but now I'm seeing like brown folks. You've seen that, right?
Absolutely. And there's 2 reasons for that, I think, or 2 patterns, I guess. One is that we're creating our own spaces, right? So 10 years ago, we didn't have the Black Farmers and Urban Gardeners Conference, right? We didn't have the Black Farmer Funds. We didn't have Black Farmers United of New York. Like, all of these, there were some of those organizations in the Southeast, and I want to give homage and pay credit to the, Federation of Southern Cooperatives and a lot of our elders. But up here in the Northeast or in the West, you just didn't have it. So one is creating our own spaces. So when I did the release for Farming While Black, it was actually at a National Black Farmers Conference where I got to speak, surrounded by 1,000 Black faces. It was incredible. It was powerful. But then also, I do think that there are certainly, a critical mass of white folks of conscience in these historically white-led organizations who are realizing that it's completely whack and untenable to have a white people club when it comes to anything, but especially food and farming. I mean, 85% of the labor on farms is done by people of color, right? Almost all of the agricultural techniques that we use, that we celebrate, were invented by Black and brown people. So how are you going to have a farming space that's white dominated? And so I think there has been a push, faltering. We all know how those diversity efforts work, but, to have scholarships and caucuses and more speakers of color and blah, blah, blah. Some do better than others, but it has definitely changed to the point where now I meet young folks, 4, 5, 7, 8 years old, who are saying that, when they grow up, they want to grow food. And that to me is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that all the young people that were prepared to go to the annual summer program, you all have had. I mean, Elise has been there. It would have been the 3rd year, right? 4th year? 3rd year?
Yes, it would have been, well, it would be the 4th year of the Immersion Program.
Yeah.
With our favorite babies. So
we
miss them.
I know. I mean, she misses it. All the other Felix, Albisu, Yabisi, like, these are like collectively children of ours and some of our other comrades, and it's like, damn, because when I had to tell her that, I think that's when she was like, this ain't fair. Like, she was like, I don't need to go to school. I like online, or I'm fine. I don't need. And then I was like, the program's not happening. And she's like, no, this is not right. And I've seen how she has come back and really, yes, knowing some real skills around like land and farming, but more like her spiritual nature and what you all have given to them, and saying like there's a direct connection of land and dirt to your spirit. And I would be remiss if I didn't let people know that Leah's sister is one half of the most amazing group, Climbing Poetry. But also there's Wild Seed, and like your sister, but your sister's other land and that other people are cultivating. And we're so lucky they're both in New York. I'm like, yes, right now. But I wonder, I was reading the article on you in Vogue magazine. First, the picture's phenomenal. Like, it's so powerful. That's the one I put on the flyer if everybody wants to see it. It's so strong, it's so powerful. And in the interview, they asked you, well, post like the George Floyd, how have you all experienced this? And um, I think that the question was, how have you experienced what the murder of George Floyd and this kind of current movement of particularly young people out in the streets? But I mean, you were there, so I mean, you saw it when we all saw it. Why would people or should be making the connection, like, not having food is also a form of state violence as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that
I love everybody. This is look.
there's a picture. That's
Well,
funny. Not everybody loved that picture. So I will say that the symbol that I'm making with the machete like that is
yeah.
for the Haitian voodoo deity Azaka, who is the deity of agriculture, who I highly revere, and I stand by our traditional religions as part of our liberation, but not everybody does. So I'm glad you like the picture.
I show my father this, and he was like, "Those are really good machetes." And I was like, "Cause." I was like, "Dad, do you know what that means?" He's like, "Yes, I know what that means. It's something about Haiti." And I'm like, "Yo, dude, why haven't you been telling me stuff?" But I mean, look, I first, I mean, your arms are sick, which as a farm manager, you're out there toiling in the lamp. But it is powerful, So when I got my Vogue, yes, I still subscribe to certain magazines. I was like, oh, this is dope. And part of it is, for me, the picture itself, um, for me, is powerful visually. Like, you can be a Black woman and farm and be strong and have this spiritual connection. So it's not really that Vogue maybe, but more like what the picture to me symbolized. I was very like, I was like, yes, this is so beautiful, because a lot of the white folks that reading Vogue have no idea what you're doing.
Oh no, we were conjuring some stuff, because what a lot of folks don't know about the deity Azaka is, in addition to being about agriculture and farms,
Right.
Azaka is the protector of the peasant, of the poor, of the oppressed, specifically against police. So Azaka cannot stand police or the law enforcement of any kinds, and will interrupt any violence that's done. So there's a lot of subtext, which I didn't tell Vogue, but I'm telling you, when we make that symbol. And same thing, when our family went to the protest, we went, with our medicine pouches.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a number of fronts that we have to be fighting for. And you put it so well, whether we're talking about housing discrimination, dilapidated public school system, whether we're talking about, police rolling up in unarmed, unmarked cars, grabbing protesters off the street, ICE and detention camps, food apartheid, it's part of the same system. And something I so appreciate about, the current movement that we're in is we're seeing that these are interconnected. It's not like you can just solve the police issue and then we're good. We have to solve all these issues, because the underpinning is this patriarchal white supremacist capitalism that sees people not as actual human beings, right, but as these resources for wealth to be extracted from.
Right.
And we want to flip that. So, we're here in the food sphere, but we're obviously, tied into all of it. We want to make sure the land is given back. We want to make sure that, farm workers have their rights. We want to make sure that everybody gets enough food to eat. And that's going to require deep political change alongside of everything, really everything in the Vision for Black Lives platform, to just sum it up.
Yeah. And I mean, can you tell people what you mean when you say food desert and food apartheid?
Definitely. So a food desert is the government term for a zip code where there aren't any grocery stores, or very few, and where people have a high rate of poverty in terms of income levels. The problem with the term desert is it implies something natural, inevitable, something that's, just part of the world, because it is. But apartheid is a human created system of segregation that relegates, certain people based on their skin color to opulence and others to scarcity. And there's nothing natural about that. And I actually think calling it food apartheid is not only more honest, but it also is more hopeful, because if we can create a system as a society, we can dismantle it. If we try to fight the desert, we will lose, because it's a natural, enduring phenomena. But apartheid can be dismantled. And so I think by our terminology matters, because it shapes our orientation to the problem.
Yeah. And I mean, us having children that are politically understanding and aware, what has it been like for your children in this time period? I realize that I haven't been talking as much as I should be to Alicia, just like not a check-in, for more like, wow, this is the time to have some deep discussions. But because of the crisis, it also requires people like us. We're pulled in so many directions and we're unable to say no. Like, that's a big thing. Like, no, I can't do it. I need to like play a game with my daughter and whatever. That kind of stuff. How have your children been doing in this time?
I really empathize with what you're saying because I'm certainly guilty of just working like 60, 70 hours a week, trying to respond to all the need. And if my kids want to rock with me, it's like they're on the farm working, or they're being the tech person for my podcast. They're just engaged. But I will say, I will share one story. I don't think Emmett would mind. But we had a really scary incident. This was actually right after George Floyd's lynching by the state, where we do this weekly, really innocuous garden show. It's like Fridays at 4, Ask a Sister Farmer, where people call in and ask you how to grow kale and okra and stuff. And Emmett's like the chat moderator. So his job is to just keep it clean and ask the questions. And we actually got Zoom bombed by some what looked to be members of the Klan, because they were wearing hoods and robes, and they started chanting things that I will not repeat on your show, but really harmful racial slurs. They started flooding the chat with, they've managed to get the controls, and there's a whole backstory we figured out with Zoom why that had happened, but they were posting images that were very disturbing. And my poor child, my son he's a teenager, he's grown, he's got a tough exterior, but he was very shaken at the end of that. I think it gave him an opportunity to release all the fear he'd been holding, as a young Black man in America, everything that's happening, and then seeing this right in his face. He was just weeping, and it took many days for him to recover from that experience, that very personal experience, because I think it was both confronting that, but also feeling the weight of all that's on our people right now. So as parents, we do our best to provide love and support for our children, and I think that we like to pretend that we can protect them and keep them perfectly safe. And because Soulfire Farm is increasingly visible in the public, we've had to put in some security measures and do some practicing around the what ifs. And I think that we try to keep it light and fun, but I think it's scary. It's scary for our children to have these conversations about, well, if this happens, this is where you go. This is what you do. If something happens to mom, your parents, this is what you need to do. They don't want to have to think about that. They want to think about prom, and what they want to get their girlfriend for the birthday. And it's heartbreaking in some ways, as much as I'm so proud of all the incredible skills they have and the consciousness they have. Sometimes, of course, I feel guilty that raising them like this means they have to carry the burden of the world and can't always just be a regular kid,
Yeah, I think for them, they also have a deep sense of empathy. And I think people that have empathy and compassion will literally like feel things to the point that it affects your mental wellness, but also physically, and I think all of us are, our whole crew is going through that right now. Like we have a comrade, they just had a baby last week, and it's like, you were pregnant before COVID, and now you're in COVID having a child. And it's just like, people like we're surrounded with have a deep sense of feeling what is injustice, and how do we fight against it in this moment. I did want to play the video that we got from Fred Hampton, and it shows Fred Hampton, the son of Fred Hampton Sr., Fred Hampton Jr., is in Maywood, which is a village still connected to the city of Chicago, but a village. And they finally were able to get back the home where Fred Hampton Sr. had lived in as a kid, and have been doing things. And there's a lot, not even a lot, it's like 2 feet next to them, a house has been abandoned for like 3 decades maybe or more. I wanted to show this video. I don't know if you've seen it, but, we're going to show that now. It's all connected to food. That's why I want to show it to people. And what happens when you're growing food sometimes in our communities.
Oh, hell no.
Kim,
Hell no.
live?
Yeah, live.
Already live? Yeah.
Recorded.
Get your live too.
Are we going to go live or record?
Live. Live, yeah.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, live.
Yeah, man. See that? Tomatoes and something. So this is the People's Garden at the Hampton House, under attack by the Village of Maywood. Under attack, man. We wake up 7 o'clock in the morning. You see the community is being fed by this. And now the Village of Maywood have called these guys, put their fence in here, and destroy the People's Garden, man. Straight up. Destroying the People's Garden, man. Under attack, man. We're just coming back from Detroit, Michigan, in the case of Hakeem Littleton. And we wake up in the morning after serving the people all weekend out of town. We wake up to this, man. That's what we wake up to right here. Chairman Fred's Streets Party coming up in a month. You know what I'm saying? And this is how it goes, man. Legacy is under attack. Dude showed us a work order directly from the Village of Maywood. So we're clear. The city and the state in general, we're not talking about the state of Illinois, we're talking about the system that called this directive to attack the Hampton House, to attack the People's Garden. That's what happens when you grow your own food in the community for the people. You should let the hounds loose on these motherfuckers, man.
It tears down every time you look around. Like, come on now. Where was y'all at when all these people was getting killed? Where was y'all at?
The Village of Maywood.
They was down on the street shooting not too long ago. Right or wrong.
Right.
Y'all know it was right. And then every time we sit here and we do everything. When I say free them all, we free them all. Don't think that Beatrice Robinson don't be around here doing nothing. I do stuff for my community.
That's right.
Don't think that I don't be sitting here paying attention to stuff, because I pay attention to a lot of things. Don't think that I'm crazy or I'm out of my motherfucking mind. Excuse my language. But yes, I be here, and I stand with my brothers and my sisters, and I want us to have a great community like we used to have. But you sit here, you keep on moving all these people in. Oh, now you want a new, what they say, they done sat here and voted on a Popeyes, so we're going to have Popeyes. We're going to have 2 Popeyes, 2 Burger Kings, and whatever else. But we don't have no grocery store.
Man, come on.
We don't even have no grocery store, but we sitting here growing our fruits and vegetables and everything around here to feed the community because we don't have enough. But then you sitting around here telling us what we can and can't do on property that's been vacant for over 10 years.
30, 40 years.
30
Oh my
years.
God, come on
30
now.
years.
Let's talk about the reality in life that we sitting here, that we struggle on a daily basis. And then you want us not to say nothing. You want us to stand down. You want us not to say nothing at all and just be quiet and hush hush. When is we all gonna stand together and see that that is not for us? We gotta take our community and make our community better.
That's right.
And that's just how I feel. I love everybody. Like I said, free them all.
Free them all. Man. July 20th, 2020, the People's Garden at the Hampton House under attack by order of the Village of Maywood.
And they ain't doing a damn thing for us.
Come on.
But raising taxes, raising water bills, raising everything. Y'all ain't even fixed none of these damn potholes.
Right.
Let's talk about let's talk about all these landlords, slumlords that got us sitting here paying all this money and won't fix a damn thing.
What's up?
Nothing. But as soon as they see me, oh, Lock her up, lock her up.
Right.
No, ain't no lock me up.
Free them all. Real talk.
Don't lock me up. Lock yourselves up. Because y'all the ones that's locking up money and funding, because it ain't going nowhere but to y'all. Y'all live, I bet you y'all got AC and central air and heat. I bet you got good running water. I bet you ain't sitting around here with flooded basements. I bet you ain't sitting around here having to help your neighbor out. Help thy neighbor is what they say.
He said flooded basements. We know about that.
Huh.
Real talk.
You ain't helping nothing. Y'all close the grates up on the thing so we can sit here and flood out. And then we still have to sit here and pay y'all to come pick it up.
Come on
Now. Then y'all want to pay us pinches of pennies to help y'all. Oh, we need volunteers. I ain't volunteering for nothing. Once y'all volunteer y'all ass out here and start doing some real leg work.
Right.
All these people sitting here getting killed in this little town and the 21 blocks, but y'all can't solve not one crime. Not one crime. Not one crime. But y'all got cameras. Y'all got schools. Okay, ain't no opening no schools. This is a pandemic. And y'all been a pandemic. They been a corrosion, actually. They are corroded.
Yeah, I wanted to share that because last night Fred sent it to me and I was talking to him like, this is crazy. Like, who puts a fence around food? Like, the demonic nature of all of it. And as a reminder that the mayor is a Black lesbian woman. That is the village of Maywood. It's still part of the Chicago city government, which means someone in her government was like, yeah, let's go where they're growing kale and cabbage and let's put fences around it. I mean, it is, I mean, the only word I have is demonic. Like, that's some crazy ass shit, y'all.
I think that's an appropriate word. And unfortunately, you know, that there's a long history of that. I mean, we definitely know about community gardens being shuttered in every major city in the US for profit in part, but also because food is a weapon. You know, Henry Kissinger said, control the oil, control the nations, control the food, and you control the people. And we can look back to the 1968 Greenwood food blockade, when some of the ways that Black folks who were attempting to register to vote were punished is when the KKK implemented a food blockade to prevent 40,000 pounds of food aid from reaching communities, trying to starve them out so that they would not try to register to vote. So food is used, the withholding of food or access to food is used as a tool, you know, by folks in dominance to maintain their dominance. And, you know, as heartbreaking as it is, it's definitely not surprising, right?
Yeah, and you've been, I think you're part of the folks, or I'm not sure if you created it or other folks with you, this Black farmers database where you could find, you know, where there are Black farms. But in your book, there's a part where you talk about Sojourner Truth and basically that she had a meeting with Ulysses S. Grant, the president, and she wanted enslaved people to get land grants in the West so that they could attain economic independence and be free from Southern white racism. She persisted for 7 years. And then she was echoing the call of Garrison Frazier and other Black ministers in the South who designed the idea of 40 acres and a mule. Despite the broken promises of 40 acres and a mule, Black people purchased 120,000 farms in 1890. By 1910, Black farmers had accumulated 218,000 farms and nearly 15 million acres, 14% of the nation's farmland. And now we know, and folks shouldn't look at the history of this huge lawsuit where Black farmers were, I don't know if it made it to the Supreme Court, maybe Leah, you would know, but that history of being able to say that in 1910, there were more Black people who owned land and farmed it. And then in 2020, and I think the numbers are minuscule right now around how many acreage is left, but how many Black farmers are here still, and also the enduring racism that they get from all the other farmers, but also the system. What is the amount of you know, what would you say is the amount of Black farmers that are out there? Is it that small that you kind of all might know each other through like the 6 degrees of separation, probably.
It is that small. And, you know, it's kind of wild, too, to think that we're actually worse off in terms of wealth and land distribution by race now than we were in 1910. Because right now, you know, 98% of the rural land in the United States, that means the land that can grow food, is white owned. That's 98% of the land is white owned. It's higher than it's ever been before, because wealth attracts wealth to itself. That's how it's designed. And right now, the number of Black farmers in this country is approximately 1.5%.
Wow.
1.5%. So if you look at the Department of Labor statistics, being a farm owner is one of the whitest professions. It's second only to being a veterinarian. And being a farm laborer, meaning your back is bent, your hands are cracked, right? That is the Black and brownest profession in the United States, including slave labor. So we can't forget that the 13th Amendment has a little exclusion clause that allows people who've been convicted of a so-called crime to be forced to work for no pay. And with the current administration's crackdown on so-called immigration and so forth, obviously I have a critique of all that, there's a labor shortage on farms. And so they have been upping the amount of convict lessees, so these are Black men mostly, going out to work on plantations for free, picking the food that feeds the nation to address the labor shortage. And so we have not fundamentally, we've changed forms, but fundamentally the way that food is generated in this country is based on stolen land and exploited labor, backs of Black and brown people. And I don't think there's any way for us to get free until we fix that food system.
Yeah, I mean, and I wanted to just like folks, and if you sign up to Soulfire Farms site, you'll get these monthly reports. But I really like this graphic, and it shows, it says nourishing at Soulfire Farm. With your support, we've been able to grow awareness and resisting by engaging over 11,000 people in talks and workshops, harvesting weekly vegetables for 350 people through our sliding scale, CSA, budding future leaders among 675 youth who have learned from our food justice curriculum, pollinating the movement with 90 plus publications and media spots, rooting in on farmer trainings for 276 Black, Indigenous people of color to learn farming and building skills, and building topsoil in the movement by collaborating on 8 policy initiatives. So I'm a graphic learner, so I think like folks, you just print it out. That's what, just print it out. But this really shows the breadth of what you all have been able to do in making us understand that there's now a major food chain disruption. And until I read some of what y'all were putting out and talked to folks in Cooperation Jackson, I couldn't make the connection. And I was like, why do farmers have to throw away milk, or why are they getting rid of that? Mm-hmm. I know now why, but can you let people know who see, for weeks we saw farmers having to, quote, get rid of food, but why was that? Or why?
I mean, I'd be curious what Cooperation Jackson says, but my understanding is that, what the U.S. capitalism has really prioritized efficiency, the holy grail of efficiency, which actually makes supply chains very brittle. So all of these big farms, they are working through contracts, say with Wendy's, or they're working through a contract with Sodexo, these big companies. And they're planting exactly how many tomatoes of a certain size and how many crates, and they know what processing plants going through and so forth. They don't have any nimbleness. And so suddenly when these supply chains broke, how are they going to have the workers, the machines, the boxes, and the accounts to suddenly shift to grocery stores or suddenly shift to food distribution program? They don't have that because they've been locked into these very specific mechanisms. And because the margins are so tight, they literally cannot afford the space or the food to feed their pigs for those 2 extra days while they try to figure it out. So they're slaughtering these animals, mass graves, right, to avoid this backlog. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And I don't think it's one individual that's at fault. Again, we have to always look at the systems and how they're set up. Our smaller farms are nimble because they don't have that efficiency problem. So we're able to say, okay, Center for Law and Justice isn't doing their health clinic. That's fine. I'll throw some more things on the online store. I'll throw some more things in my CSA. We're already diversified. So we just change our emphasis. It's not that it isn't hard, right? But we already have a biodiversity within the way that we distribute in terms of what we grow. So we're much more flexible. These big corporate farms do not. And, it's a little bit BS too, because the USDA, to their credit, maybe tried to create a program that took some of this waste and then put it into the food banks. But the requirements were so rigid that it excluded all the small farmers. It was like, you need this many crates of onions of this exact size, right, to get the money, to get paid as the farmer to then donate the produce. So there's just, I don't know. This is a hot mess. What did Cooperation Jackson say?
Pretty much the same thing you just said, about once that food chain breaks. Like, I don't think people understand that a lot of farms are operating, the big farms, they might be a farm, but they're operating under like a corporation, capitalism. Like, once that food chain supply breaks, like, you just explain what happens, and obviously this is a hard time for farmers. It's going to continue to be a hard time, but also, farmers like you all also supply restaurants. And, I do think about small restaurants that someone built their whole life and has connections, and food to table farm restaurants are not able to survive right now. Because part of their mission as a farm to table is we're not going to buy all this corporate food and that. And, so of course, McDonald's and Chipotle and all of them are going to survive. They're the only things we often see in our communities before we'll see a grocery store. But farmers that are conscious and have been supplying restaurants have been hit too. But you are all still able to do your CSA shares this summer, right?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we changed it around a little bit because, as you know, in past years, we always did a sliding scale. So we had some middle income folks and some low income folks. But because of to be frank, like the hunger disaster of the pandemic and everything associated with it, we actually flipped, and all the food is going to low income people for free. And then we're raising money elsewhere. So like, cover the cost of that. We're going to be selling some teas and stuff online, so stay tuned for our online store, because all the money that comes in will cover the vegetables that go for free to people. And it's made a big difference. I mean, I'm getting a lot of calls from our members. I'll be out in the field pulling garlic, my phone rings. If it's a member, I'm going to answer it, and they'll be like, look, my kids are finally getting to eat good. We were only able to get boiled pasta or this or that. But because you're bringing to our doorstep all these fruits and vegetables and things, then we can, have the nutrients that we need to be healthy. So that's very meaningful. And yes, we are able to continue, but we've just switched to basically free food for those who need it in 2020. Yeah.
Well, Leah, I want you to give out the information so folks can follow you at Soulfire Farm and the incredible resources that you have. I recommend everybody get the book. Like I said, it's a beautiful book. It shows you how you can create this. And, I was just talking to my parents in these last 2 or 3 months. My father has always grown some type of food wherever we lived. And I mean, he is so happy in his garden, and my mom's like, she's just happy. His tomatoes are coming up and all these things. And I remember them growing tomatoes and strawberries. And even though we lived in this suburban community that it was huge houses and all this kind of stuff, I remember like we ate tomatoes from the little garden my dad was able to create. Now in this pandemic, he's very much about like, we have to grow what we can anyway at this point, and it's interesting because everything he learned as a child in Puerto Rico. And now he's really able to do, I think, what he's always wanted to do, which is grow food. And I'm like, Dad, this is probably what you wanted to be, like a farmer. He's like, yeah, but we weren't thinking of that then. We all were leaving Puerto Rico for a better life, to the United States. And now he's back to growing. And, I wish I would have paid more attention when he was like, let me show you how to do this. But the book has shown me how to do this. What would be your message you want to send to people who are thinking or already kind of beginning to say, well, look, we can grow our own food, we can grow herbs, we can do that, but also the healing property and the spiritual nature of really connecting with the land. What is it that you would want people to know about that?
I mean, it's beautiful, this family story that you're sharing, because I think a lot of us have that in common, where our parents or our grandparents like left the land behind with the idea of a better life. And certainly in my ancestry, you know, there's been sharecropping and slavery and brutal dictatorships and all kinds of things associated with the land. And as my friend Chris Bolden Newsom, black farmer in Philly, would say, he would say the land was the scene of the crime. So it makes sense to try to leave. But I would add, she was not the criminal. But in our consciousness, sometimes we mix those two together. So we think if we just get to those paved streets of the urban north, you know, continental United States, things will be better. But the land did not oppress us. The land probably had our back without us realizing it. And so I think our generation is in this time is the one that's realizing we left a little piece of our culture and souls back in those red clays, and we need to go pick it up. That's going to be part of our fortification. So I guess what I would say to folks who are thinking about that spiritual aspect and all that is to remember that those of us who, you know, have African ancestry, our ancestral grandmothers actually took their seeds, their okra, cowpea, millet, black rice, egusi. They took their seeds and they braided them into their hair before they were forced onto transatlantic slave ships, because that was their insurance for us. That was their gift for us, their descendants. And do we really want that seed to die out with our generation? Or are we willing to also pick up that seed and save it for the future so that our children, our grandchildren have something to inherit? So yeah, pass on the seed, y'all.
Yeah. Well, give out the information so folks could follow you at Soul Fire Farm, wherever you all are on your social media platforms.
Thank you.
So yeah, you could go to soulfirefarm.org. I know that Leah is on Instagram. Do y'all do Twitter? I'm so over Twitter.
Yeah, I know we're on all the things. It's just Soul Fire Farm, one word. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever else. We're not on TikTok. Maybe we need to get on that. I don't know.
Probably not. Probably not. Well, Leah, I want thank you so much. I think a lot of people learned a lot by me talking with you, and you know, I know we'll all see each other soon, but definitely give our love to Jonah, Emmett, and Nashima, and you know, hopefully we'll see each other soon, you know. And of course, we're just always so incredibly blessed in the community that we are now, that we have y'all. You know, especially in this time, it's really important. The work was always important, but I think in this time it's more important than ever, because as systems collapse, you do find these bright spots, and Soul Fire Farm is one of the brightest spots for us. So we thank you and love you for all the work that you all do, and glad that everybody's safe and healthy. And I know tomorrow you'll be out there pulling up something.
Yeah, we got carrots on the list, beef, garlic.
So thank you so
well,
much.
Thanks, sis.
Okay, send love to the family from us. Stay safe.
All right, peace, everyone.
Yay. So yeah, Soul Fire Farm, just follow them, and you know, once we're able to go see people again, we'll be up there. And I encourage people to, like, if you're even interested, to sign up for they have online classes, 3D immersion classes. You can see all the structures that they're building on the farm. You know, it's a farm, but it has a lot of other structures around it. And now they a couple years ago had been able to open the pond so people could swim in it. There's a lot to even that they had to do to get this pond back to a place where people could, like, enjoy themselves in water and things like that. It's incredible. So yeah, check out Soul Fire Farm. So today, as we always end our show with a political prisoner of war, today we're talking about Kojo Bomani Sababu, who is a new African prisoner of war currently serving time for actions with the Black Liberation Army and an attempted escape from prison with Puerto Rico independista Oscar Lopez Rivera. Kojo was captured on December 19th, 1975, along with anarchist Ojo Latulo during a bank appropriation. He was also charged with the murder of a drug dealer in his neighborhood. He was convicted of seditious conspiracy in 1981 and sentenced to 55 years in prison. In 1988, he was convicted of a conspiracy to escape using rockets, hand grenades, and a helicopter, along with Jamie Delgado, a veteran independence leader, Dora Garcia, a prominent community activist, and Oscar Lopez Rivera, Puerto Rican independentista, from the federal prison at Leavenworth while he was serving a 55-year sentence. Yeah, they were trying to get out. If you're using rockets, hand grenades, and a helicopter, and I wish they were. And a couple of these are out, but Kojo's still in there. So you can look for more his story on Jericho Movement, which has all of RPPs and prisoners of war. He's been in prison now for 44 years, as we say, free them all. They have to be free now. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to have Loida Limbal, who just did this amazing documentary about care workers, especially those that work at night. The documentary's Through the Night. And we're going to have Kat Brooks from Oakland, who is not only going to tell us everything that's happening in Oakland, but will have much to say about Trump saying he's going to send federal troops to Oakland. I'm like, you said Chicago and Oakland, dude. I don't think any of y'all prepared for what Chicago and Oakland will do to make sure that these federal troops not only invade our cities, but I'm telling you, on Chicago and Oakland's watch, they're not going to stand for these kidnappings that are happening and disappearance of organizers or activists. So we're going to have them on both tomorrow. So as always, thank you all for rocking with us. Stay up, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you in the whirlwind. Peace.